Today's talk is on the process of developing a meditation practice. Nowadays, meditation is very popular. A lot of people are at least trying to do it. A lot of people are talking about it. But on my personal experience, it's difficult to find someone that has managed to do it consistently and has managed to improve the amount of time they do it, has managed to do it for some years. So that tells me that it's not as simple as it looks. Although in theory it's a simple exercise, you just sit and watch your breath or sit and watch your mind. But the fact that very few people actually manage to do it regularly for a consistent period of time, it shows that it's not as simple as it looks. So let's try to talk a little bit more about it. So let's find the ways that we can help you to develop a meditation practice. Now, the first suggestion I'll have is to avoid two tendencies, or I would say two extremes that happens nowadays. One extreme is the expectation of great experiences. So, for example, sometimes we read maybe some reports or some texts about, well, meditation made someone enlightened, or meditation changed someone's life completely, or I went to a retreat and I was never the same again. This type of story. And we expect that, well, I'll be sitting here meditation, something amazing, something incredible should happen. I think that's a bad way to start. It's a wrong first step, creates a lot of expectations. And in general, you see that for majority of time of practice and majority of people's, like normal people experience, this is not what's going to happen. They're going to sit there and most probably they're going to have to face really down to earth experiences like boredom, agitation, and kind of just day-to-day mental stuff going on, day-to-day discomfort of the body. So they might realize that those great grand experiences don't really come to place. So first thing to eliminate is that expectation of incredible mystical experiences. Then the second extreme to avoid, or the second tendency that I see nowadays, is the tendency to make it too down to earth. It's almost like the opposite. On one hand, people are expecting great things to happen, like mystical experiences, spiritual experiences, out of this world experiences. On the other hand, they made it too simple, which even there's an expression, I think it's even a book nowadays called Mac mindfulness, is getting the idea of mindfulness, the idea of meditation, making it very casual, even commercial, like a McDonald's experience, something that is just everywhere and it's very, very common. So that you see a lot in the treating of meditation, for example, as just as a stress release, or meditation as something you do to calm down to sleep, or something that you do to improve your quality of work, you do on the work kind of break in order to rest the mind so you can produce again. This type of kind of corporate mindfulness. I also, my experience, have noticed that this type of idea for meditation doesn't help much. Why? Is because it's too narrow and too simplistic. You're reducing something that is like a millennial practice. Even religions such as Buddhism are kind of born out of meditative states. You're taking those traditional long-standing practices which people have used, yes, to develop larger states of mind or altered states of mind and altered states of experience, and you're transforming that into a very simplistic approach and result, like let me reduce the stress. So that also makes it not interesting, or it doesn't treat it with the respect that it deserves, and then it's complicated for the person to maintain the practice. That being said, so you're trying to have a mindset which is, it's treating you to respect, like you're giving value to this practice, but at the same time having a beginner's expectation or an open mindset for the results. The best way to enter the proper mindset, I would say, is to actually treat meditation the same way you treat some form of exercise, like physical exercise. Sometimes we think of meditation as something different just because we are using more the mind itself, or the idea of training the mind. But I think it's better to treat it as you treat a physical exercise. Think like this. You have never done, let's say, weightlifting. And now, for whatever reason, you need to improve your health, you need to feel better, you join a gym and you start to do weightlifting. If you're going for the first time to do some weights, first you have for sure a very strong beginner's mindset. You'll be kind of open to the experience. You'll be open to not do it well, So you know that you're going to be a little bit weak, a little bit uncoordinated, and you'll be open also to a progressive mindset, which means you start from 0, you go to 1, to 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So you wouldn't expect to get to the gym and then get the 100 kilos on the bench press and get super jacked and super strong as the guy next on the next bench. You wouldn't have that mindset. You know that that's impossible. I don't know why then people have that mindset of meditation. They think that just because it looks simpler, you just have to sit there and watch your breath, they expect to be meditators. So they go for the first time or the first week or the first month or the first year, and they expect to be athletes of meditation. And that's not going to happen. So have a mindset of an exercise, which means how do you get better with an exercise? You do it regularly and you increase the volume of it. So let's say weightlifting again. How do you get better weightlifting? Well, you start going 2-3 times a week. You know that you'll be weak at that, so you go slowly, practicing slowly without expectations. Then eventually you start to realize, well, I got a little bit stronger, got a little bit more coordinated on this exercise. Then you push a little bit more weight, maybe a little bit more time, maybe a little bit more times a week. So you see, if you have this mindset of treating meditation as an exercise, you have much less expectations and a much better overview of time frame. Like you need time to develop it. Another comparison with exercise is that you need discipline. Nowadays, discipline is a complicated word. We all kind of, it's even difficult to talk about this nowadays because on one hand, we don't like the old school approaches of being very tough and like just do it kind of thing, no pain, no gain. But at the same time, we sometimes fall into the other extreme of being too soft. Like, no, people say, well, just do your meditation, or everything is meditation, or you don't really need to sit all the time, or just lie down, you don't have to do it sitting, or if you don't like to sit, you can just pay attention to your day-to-day activities. So people have a tendency sometimes to be too lenient and too permissive on their lack of discipline, and then of course you don't get the results. Again, use the reference of the exercise. Well, if you want to get better at weightlifting, no one's going to be better at weightlifting without doing weightlifting. It's very simple, and it's obvious that the more time you put, the more effort you put into it, you're going to explore more capacities. People are different. Some people develop faster than the others, like any exercise, but whoever puts some amount of effort on it will get some result. Meditation is the same. So nowadays I'm a little bit more emphatic on that. If you don't take the initial steps of actually having a regular practice, ideally at a regular time, not much will come out of it. It will not happen as a miracle, it will not fall from the sky, and it will always be like a practice that don't bring you much result. And then of course, if you don't get result, eventually you drop it because there's no positive feedback on it. Treat as exercise. If you do it more, you get better at it, and especially in the beginning, it's necessary to have some form of structure, just like exercise. So having a set time, repeating around the same time, having a set day. So for example, for meditation, classically speaking, maybe in the morning or later in the evening, those are classic times that people prefer, maybe for 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but you do it regularly, do it consistently, and you sustain the repetition, especially in the beginning. Once it becomes part of you, then yes, you can kind of become more flexible with your practice because it will be part of your day-to-day routine and also part of your personality in a way. But in the first years, ideally you should have a systematic approach. Although I spoke about discipline, one aspect that is even in the Yoga Sutras regarding abhyasa or practice discipline is to have some devotion, or let's say maybe the word devotion is a little bit too religious, although it fits the context, but to have a little bit of a embellishment or making the practice a little bit more beautiful. What I mean is, it does help when you turn something to be a little bit special, a little bit of a ritual. So for example, if you're going to do a practice of meditation, yes, it does help if you have, for example, a set place to do it, and if you have a set cushion to do it, and if you put some incense if you like it, if you put some nice decoration if you like, you have an altar if you have a more religious tendency. So basically to make the practice something slightly more special. Think of having a practice like having a relationship. If you have a partner, for example, and you just treat the partner as another person, as you treat anyone else, of course that the relationship is bound to fail. Everyone that has had some form of long-standing relationship will know that you need to put some effort sometimes to make it clear that that something is special. And then you dress a little bit better, you put a better perfume, you take to a better place, you cook a better meal. You try to make that scene more special, even though it's the same person. With the practice, the same. You're trying to get something that is ordinary, something that is repeatable, but every day, ideally, you're trying to make it slightly special. That's the importance of ritual. Ritual causes a separation in time. There's a marked beginning, there's a marked process, and there's a marked end. So it creates a separation regarding the rest of the structure, or the rest of the day. Now, in terms of the practical aspects themselves, the two qualities that you're looking to develop is what they call like bhavanas. The two aspects you need to cultivate for your meditation to progress. It's relaxation and attention. Those two have to be arranged together for meditation to actually happen and to progress. So you need to learn how to relax, and that's a lot related to the body. In my opinion, that's a confusion that happens in some meditation circles. They talk too much about the mind and they forget that the mind is sitting on the body. So learning how to relax is very much a body sensation, a body capacity. Here comes into hand all the yoga practices, or any practice of the body that teaches to be self-conscious of the body, that teaches you how to feel the body, to experience the tension and the relaxation of the body. So physical practices. The second bhavana, the second development you're trying to have is the capacity of attention. Although there's some connection with the body as well, so you can train attention with physical practice, with physical development, then we are talking of a more mental quality. For this bhavana of attention, the idea of mindfulness comes into place. So that means always noticing the state of the body, always noticing the movements of the mind, so the transfer of thoughts, the changes of thoughts, the changes of mood, the changes of emotions. So to keep self-attention, self-exploration throughout the day, that will train the capacity of the mind to be present and to be more still. So because although there's stuff shifting, so the body keeps shifting, the mind keeps shifting, you're training also that something else, which is consciousness, the sense of awareness, which remains still. So although there's a lot of stuff going on, in a way what you're training is the capacity of noticing that, and that something is more solid, is more present, is more single. In terms of time duration, some people, again, there's a little bit of the modern thing of being too maybe lenient or too soft. Some people say, well, I do 1 minute of meditation or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I don't think that's enough. I think in terms of exercise, again, well, if you do 5 minutes of walking, is it better than doing nothing? Yes, but how quick could you develop doing 5 minutes of walking? It will take you decades to be able to run or do anything more than that. It's the same principle of the exercise. Of course, if you do a little bit more, you're going to develop faster. I would say 20 minutes is a good starting point. It's a good metric. It's 10 minutes seems too low, 30 minutes can be too much for people, so 20 minutes is a good starting point for any meditation technique. It doesn't matter so much the technique in itself in the beginning, as long as that technique is training those two qualities of relaxation and attention, because that's what really you need to develop. Relaxation, knowing how to relax, and knowing how to be present. Whatever technique you choose, whatever suits your personality, go for it. 20 minutes of that, ideally daily, or at least as close to daily as possible, and even better if it's done around the same time of the day, so always the same time. That will help to generate the discipline, that will help for that practice to become part of you, part of your day. Once those 20 minutes is more fixed, then you can try to progress for further, longer periods of time. The ideal posture is sitting. If it's difficult for you to sit on the floor or on a cushion, you can sit on a chair, that's fine, as long as it's not too slopped down, otherwise it's complicated to maintain the practice for longer. So sit more at the edge of the chair, the spine is slightly more straight. You can find with teachers suggestions on specific postures, but the sitting posture is the perfect ground because it's not as relaxing as lying down, which will tend to lead to all drowsiness and sleep, and it's not as active as standing or doing movement, which tends to get the body tired. So the sitting is the middle place, it's the middle ground, is the perfect, is a sweet spot for meditation to develop. Once your daily practice is structured, it is interesting, I would suggest to go to a meditation retreat, a proper meditation retreat, that you stay 3, 5, 7, 10 or more days doing a lot of meditation. So classically you have those Buddhist retreats like Vipassana and similars, in which you stay for, let's say, 10 hours or 12 hours in meditation. So once your daily practice is structured, then try going to on those retreats, because ideally, hopefully, they will allow you to really take your practice to the depth that it can. And then you might finally realize, okay, this meditation thing is more serious than it looks. It's not just for stress release. It's not just for feeling better on the day-to-day living, but well, there's something here about exploring the mind. There's something here about exploring consciousness. There's something more about life, and meditation can show that. Those retreats are the place that can help on that direction. Last point I'll mention is on the Buddhist tradition. The Buddhist tradition, not only the Buddhist tradition, but the Indian tradition of those days, the religious traditions in general, they tend to always have a complicated relationship with the idea of desire, excessive desire. There's this logic that desire kind of agitates the mind, excessive desire causes confusion, and so in a way, desire is something to be careful with. But funny enough, the Buddha on the Pali Sutras, he does mention that if there's one desire you should not be afraid of, if there's one pleasure you should not be afraid of, is the pleasure of meditation. So although he was, in his teaching times, he was saying, be careful with too much desire, be careful with the attachment to certain pleasures. Like those things, they kind of, tend to trap you. Although he was mentioning of that in several discourses, when he was talking about the pleasure of meditation, he said, don't worry about that. That's fine. Go for it. But you have to get to the point of meditation being pleasurable. And it's like exercise again. In the beginning, it's not easy, but gradually as you get better at it, you crave it. You want that feeling of the exercise again. Same goes for meditation. Eventually it becomes pleasurable. Now you're going to have some craving for it. You're going to have some wanting for it. Now you get to the sweet spot that meditation is part of you. And that pleasure of meditation should not be worried about. That will only bring benefits.